So is this a future model for the advertising industry? With me today is Sizakele Marutlulle from a new agency collective called Bob. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
What is Bob?
Bob is not dog food. Bob is best of breed. But the beauty of it is we think of ourselves as a creative collective. So instead of having departments as you would in a traditional agency, somebody handling PR or somebody faking their way through strategy, I watch people stab me as I say this. What you do have is owner-led businesses. So along the communication continuum from PR to brand activation to strategy to digital to social. So all the partners in the Bob family are owners of their own businesses. And it brings a different dynamic because when you're running a shop, it's different from running a department, right? Because departments are about overheads. A shop is about creating legacy and longevity. And that's the joy of the model because people want to work collaboratively to create stuff and work, firstly to create work that works, but also to create work that lasts.
All right, I'm going to ask you in just a moment how you charge for a service like this, but what is the advantage of this? What is the advantage, Sizakele, of this model over the traditional agency model where everything is housed under one roof and there is a seamless, almost integration of process?
There are similarities. I guess the similarity is that all of us go after clients who are looking for brand solutions, and that's where the similarities end. A traditional ad agency, and thankfully having worked in some, I can speak from a point of true reference. The obsession seems to be sequencing the flow of work. So client service gets the brief, you brief it into strategy, strategy sends it to creatives, the traffic person tries to get creatives to do something on a Friday afternoon, they tell her fancy things and call her unkind names. Eventually the work comes out, somebody has to place it, sometimes the media person hasn't seen what she's flighting, but she's going to flight it anyway because she knows it's a 30-second ad. I'm being unkind just only because I'm being simplistic, but that almost feels like the flow is still stuck on the sequencing of departments. The difference here is
there's comfort in the sequencing though for the client sometimes.
But listen to what clients, at least the brave ones, are starting to say when we have a conversation with them about Bob is, I am comforted by knowing that my brief isn't sequenced through departments, but it is thrown into a pool that's evaluated by intelligent people. So there aren't just people who are in business, but the people who've built brands. So we call those.
So you're saying no weak links in the chain?
Yeah. So and we call those inspirational briefing sessions. And the question you're asking is, what consumer problem are you solving? Not how much money can each department make. The clock doesn't start ticking for you, Mr. Client, until I've presented you an idea that we have internally have curated and chosen amongst 11,000 ideas. If you buy what I've created, then we have a conversation that becomes commercial. But I'm not going to bill you for the strategist who takes 7 hours to figure it out. I mean, I come from strategy and there were times when it took 7 hours to figure stuff out. But the joy you have as a client is the model allows you to draw from the best all the time or to pick a menu item if indeed you are more inclined to.
All right, let me pick out what I think is another weakness, but I'm sure you'll have a very smart answer. Within this collective of mavericks, who owns the process, given that you're all leaders in your own right?
Here's the beauty of it. The central hub is what we call Bob Central, of which Sizakele sits as CEO. We've got Reghad who's the Chief Commercial Officer. We've got Toby who handles digital stuff. So and an ops director who literally is the old school client service person, except in this instance, she's the account relationship manager. Okay. Client has one point of contact into Bob and one flow of work out of Bob. So client doesn't have to deal with the 7 or 6 partners. She deals or he deals with one contact person.
Given that you can cherry pick services within the agency model, are you cheaper?
I hate cheap because it makes me think of Mr. Almost. But it makes me think of brands that it makes me think of products that are disguising themselves as brands, because only products speak to price, brands speak to value, and I'd rather we spoke of value. I know that engaging with you on the Bob model will give you back some hours, and it's entirely up to you what you do with them, whether you sleep more, you play more golf, but I am going to solve the problems that keep you up at night, because that's the question I ask you first.
All right, in conclusion, I just want you to reflect on this very briefly for me. You ask the question why we're still fascinated by this term, the Afropolitan consumer, and are still calling consumers who are in the black market black. What's troubling you?
It's 20 years later. Jeremy, for every marketer who doesn't recognize the power of PL users and people like us, you're leaving 2 billion rands on the table. And the solution to that isn't lowbrow humor or slapstick. It isn't a black person jiggling their bottoms over a cup of tea or jogging with a newspaper underneath and eating on the go. I go to therapy, I swim, and I don't eat bub. So poof goes the stereotype. So the point of it is, rather than considering just consumers who are black as consumers, challenge yourself to see us as human beings, and perhaps in those layers and those textures will emerge insights that will make your work a lot more relevant.
Sizakele Marutlulle from Bob, thank you very much for joining us.
Only a pleasure, Jeremy.